Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. David took a deep breath, his weathered hands trembling slightly. 50 years of life etched into every line on his face, every gray hair on his head. But today marked the beginning of a new chapter, one he'd dreamed of for decades but never thought possible until recent breakthroughs in genetic manipulation. "Are you ready, Mr. Johnson?" The doctor's voice was gentle but clinical. David nodded, not trusting his voice. This was it, the culmination of years of soul-searching, of feeling trapped in a body that never quite fit. Science had advanced to the point where true physical transformation was possible, down to the cellular level. He would emerge from this cocoon as Allison, the woman he'd always known himself to be. The anesthesia mask descended, and David's world faded to black. Pain. Searing, all-encompassing pain greeted Allison as consciousness slowly returned. Every cell in her body felt like it was on fire, reorganizing and reshaping itself. She tried to scream, but no sound emerged from her raw throat. Cool hands touched her arm, and a soothing voice cut through the agony. "Easy now. The worst is over. Just breathe." Allison forced her eyes open, vision blurry. The doctor's face swam into focus, concern etched across her features. "Water!" Allison croaked, barely recognizing the higher pitch of her own voice. The doctor held a straw to her lips, and Allison drank greedily. As the fog began to clear, she became aware of the profound changes to her body. Everything felt different, lighter, softer. "The procedure was a success," the doctor said, setting aside the cup. "Your genetic structure has been completely rewritten. Physically, you are now a 20-year-old female. It will take some time for your mind to fully adjust to the changes." Allison nodded weakly, overwhelmed by the sensations coursing through her. Joy mingled with fear and uncertainty. This was what she'd always wanted, but the reality of it was daunting. The next few weeks passed in a blur of physical therapy and counseling sessions. Allison had to relearn how to walk, how to use her newly reshaped hands, how to speak with vocal cords that had been fundamentally altered. Some days, the frustration threatened to overwhelm her, but she pressed on, driven by the knowledge that she was finally truly herself. 6 weeks after the procedure, Allison stood before a full-length mirror, truly seeing herself for the first time. Long chestnut hair framed a heart-shaped face, bright green eyes wide with wonder. She ran her hands over the curves of her body, marveling at the softness of her skin. A laugh bubbled up from her chest, light and musical. She twirled, watching her reflection spin with her. For the first time in her life, the image in the mirror matched the person she'd always been inside. The real test came when she was finally cleared to leave the medical facility. Allison stood at the entrance, suitcase in hand, heart pounding. The world beyond those doors seemed vast and terrifying. How would people react to her? Would anyone recognize her? "You've got this," she whispered to herself, squaring her shoulders. With a deep breath, she stepped out into the sunshine. The city bustled around her, people rushing by on their daily business. No one gave her a second glance. To them, she was just another young woman going about her day. The realization was both thrilling and oddly anticlimactic. Allison made her way to the apartment she'd rented, grateful for the foresight to set everything up before the procedure. As she unpacked her meager belongings, reality began to set in. She was starting over completely. New body, new identity, new life stretching out before her. The first order of business was finding a job. Her savings would only last so long, and she was eager to begin this new chapter of her life. Allison spent hours poring over job listings, trying to find something that felt right. Her previous career in finance no longer held any appeal. This was a chance for a fresh start in every way. A posting for a junior position at an art gallery caught her eye. Allison had always had a passion for art, but had never pursued it seriously. Now, with a whole lifetime ahead of her, why not? The interview was nerve-wracking. Allison fidgeted in her chair, hyper-aware of every movement, every inflection in her voice. The gallery owner, a stylish woman in her 40s, regarded her with a critical eye. "Your resume is a bit sparse," she remarked, arching an eyebrow. Allison took a deep breath. She'd prepared for this. "I know I don't have much formal experience, but art has always been my passion. I'm a quick learner and incredibly dedicated. I may be young, but I have a unique perspective that I think could be valuable to your gallery." The owner's expression softened slightly. "Well, you certainly have enthusiasm. All right, Miss Taylor, we'll give you a trial run." "Don't make me regret it," Allison beamed, resisting the urge to jump up and hug the woman. "Thank you. You won't regret it, I promise." The next few months flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Allison threw herself into her new job with gusto, soaking up every bit of knowledge she could. Her co-workers were welcoming, if a bit bemused by her boundless enthusiasm. "Girl, how do you have so much energy?" Her colleague Mia laughed one day as they were setting up a new exhibit. "I swear, you're like the Energizer Bunny." Allison grinned, carefully hanging a delicate watercolor. "I guess I'm just excited about life, you know? Every day feels like a gift." Mia shook her head, smiling. "Well, your positivity is infectious. Want to grab drinks after work? A bunch of us are heading to that new place down the street." Allison hesitated for a moment. She'd been so focused on work and adjusting to her new life that she hadn't really socialized much. The thought of going out to a bar was both exciting and terrifying. But isn't this what she'd wanted? To live life to the fullest? "Sure," she said, surprised by her own boldness. "That sounds great." The bar was crowded and noisy, music pulsing through the air. Allison sipped her drink nervously, trying to follow the rapid-fire conversation around her. Her co-workers were discussing their love lives, a topic that made Allison's stomach churn with anxiety. "So, Allison," Mia said, turning to her with a mischievous grin. "Any romance in your life? You've been pretty quiet on that front." Allison felt her cheeks flush. "Oh, no, not really. I'm just focusing on myself right now, I guess." "Well, that hot guy at the bar has been checking you out all night," another coworker chimed in. "You should go talk to him." Panic flared in Allison's chest. She wasn't ready for this. How could she possibly navigate dating in this new body with all the complexities of her past? I think I need some air," she muttered, slipping away from the table. Outside, she leaned against the cool brick wall, taking deep breaths. This was the part of her new life she'd been avoiding thinking about. Romantic relationships seemed like an insurmountable challenge. "Are you okay?" Allison looked up to see a concerned face peering at her. It was the man from the bar, the one her co-workers had pointed out. Up close, she could see the kindness in his warm brown eyes. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then sighed. "Actually, no, I'm not. It's complicated." He leaned against the wall next to her, not too close, respecting her space. "Want to talk about it? Sometimes it helps to tell a stranger." Allison hesitated. How could she possibly explain? But something in his gentle demeanor made her want to open up, even if just a little. I feel like I'm starting my life over completely," she said slowly. "Like I'm learning how to be a person all over again. It's overwhelming sometimes." He nodded thoughtfully. "I can relate to that in a way. I moved here from across the country a few months ago, left everything behind to start fresh. It's exciting, but terrifying too." "Exactly," Allison said, relieved that he seemed to understand. "How do you deal with it?" He shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. "One day at a time. And I try to remember that everyone feels lost sometimes. We're all just figuring it out as we go along." Allison felt some of the tension leave her body. "That's actually really helpful. Thank you." "Anytime," he said, then held out his hand. "I'm Ethan, by the way." "Allison," she replied, shaking his hand. The touch sent a small thrill through her. "Well, Allison, would you like to go for a walk? Get away from the noise for a bit?" She hesitated for just a moment before nodding. I'd like that. They strolled through the quiet streets, talking about everything and nothing. Allison found herself relaxing, enjoying the simple pleasure of conversation without the pressure of expectations. As they circled back to the bar, Ethan turned to her with a shy smile. I had a really nice time talking with you, Allison. Would you maybe want to get coffee sometime? Allison's heart raced. This was a crossroads, a chance to truly embrace her new life. She took a deep breath and smiled back. I'd love to. The next few months were a whirlwind of new experiences. Allison's confidence grew both at work and in her personal life. She and Ethan began dating, taking things slow. She was upfront about her inexperience, explaining that she'd been focused on her career before. He was patient and understanding, never pushing her beyond her comfort zone. As their relationship deepened, however, Allison struggled with the weight of her secret. She knew she would have to tell Ethan the truth eventually, but the fear of rejection paralyzed her. The issue came to a head one cozy evening as they cuddled on Ethan's couch, watching a movie. He turned to her, eyes serious. Allison, can I ask you something? She tensed, sensing the shift in mood. Of course. I care about you a lot, he said slowly. But sometimes I feel like there's this wall between us, like you're holding something back. Is everything okay? Allison's heart pounded. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading and longing for in equal measure. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you. It's big, and I'll understand if it changes things between us, but you deserve to know the truth. Concern etched across his features. You can tell me anything, Allison. And so, haltingly at first, then with growing confidence, Allison told him everything. About David, about the procedure, about her journey to become her true self. Ethan listened silently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, silence stretched between them. Allison held her breath, waiting for the axe to fall. Finally, Ethan spoke. Thank you for trusting me with this, Allison. I can't imagine how difficult it must have been to keep this secret. You're not disgusted? Allison asked in a small voice. Ethan shook his head emphatically. No, not at all. I'll admit it's a lot to process. But you're still you, the amazing, kind, passionate woman I've been falling for. This doesn't change how I feel about you. Tears welled up in Allison's eyes as relief washed over her. Ethan pulled her close, holding her as she cried. We'll figure this out together, he murmured into her hair. I'm not going anywhere. As the months passed, Allison's life settled into a new normal. Her relationship with Ethan deepened, built on a foundation of honesty and trust. At work, she thrived, eventually being promoted to assistant curator. But there was still one hurdle left to face: reconnecting with her past. Allison had been avoiding contact with old friends and family, unsure how to bridge the gap between her old life and new. It was Ethan who finally convinced her to reach out. They're still your family, he said gently. Don't you think they deserve a chance to know the real you? And so, with trembling hands, Allison dialed a number she knew by heart. Her sister's voice answered, confused by the unfamiliar caller ID. Hello? Hi, Lisa, Allison said, her voice catching. It's me, David. Well, Allison now. I have so much to tell you. The line crackled with silence for a long moment. Allison held her breath, heart pounding in her chest. David! Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper. Is it really you? It's me, Allison confirmed, tears welling up in her eyes. I know this must be a shock. I've gone through some big changes. Changes? What do you mean? Where have you been? We've been so worried. The words tumbled out in a rush as Allison explained everything. The procedure, her new life, her reasons for staying away. Lisa listened in stunned silence. I'm so sorry I didn't reach out sooner, Allison finished, her voice thick with emotion. I was scared. I didn't know how to explain or if you'd even want to know me like this. Another long pause. Allison could hear Lisa's shaky breathing on the other end of the line. "Oh, David! Allison!" Lisa finally said, her own voice choked with tears. "Of course we want to know you, your family. Nothing could ever change that." Relief washed over Allison like a tidal wave. She sobbed openly, all the pent-up fear and tension of the past year releasing in a cathartic flood. "Can we meet?" Lisa asked hesitantly. I'd like to see you, to meet Allison properly." They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe the following weekend. Allison arrived early, fidgeting nervously with her coffee cup. When Lisa walked in, their eyes met across the room. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Lisa rushed forward, enveloping Allison in a fierce hug. "It's really you," she murmured, pulling back to study Allison's face. "I can see it in your eyes." They talked for hours, Lisa peppering Allison with questions about her new life. There were awkward moments, to be sure, as Lisa adjusted to using new pronouns and a new name. But underneath it all was the unshakable bond of sisterhood. "Mom and Dad will want to see you," Lisa said as they prepared to leave. "They've missed you so much." Anxiety fluttered in Allison's stomach. "Do you think they'll understand?" Lisa squeezed her hand. "It might take some time, but they love you. That hasn't changed." The reunion with her parents was emotional and complex. There were tears, confusion, and difficult conversations. But as the shock wore off, love and acceptance bloomed. Allison found herself enfolded back into the warmth of family, accepted for who she truly was. Months passed, and Allison's two worlds began to merge. She introduced Ethan to her family, watching with joy as he was welcomed with open arms. Her confidence grew, both personally and professionally. The art gallery flourished under her creative direction, and she even began showing some of her own work. One crisp autumn evening, Ethan took her for a walk in the park where they'd had their first date. As the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, he dropped to one knee. "Allison," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "you are the bravest, most incredible person I've ever known. You've taught me so much about living authentically and embracing who you truly are. I want to spend the rest of my life learning from you, growing with you, loving you. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Allison's cheeks as she nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her close, kissing her deeply as the last rays of sunlight bathed them in a golden glow. Years passed, bringing new joys and challenges. Allison and Ethan adopted 2 children, filling their home with laughter and chaos. Allison's career continued to flourish, her unique perspective bringing fresh energy to the art world. She became an advocate for transgender rights, sharing her story to inspire others. There were still difficult days, moments when the weight of her past felt heavy. But Allison had learned to embrace every part of herself, the struggles, the triumphs, the journey that had brought her to this point. On her 60th birthday, or her 30th, depending on how you looked at it, Allison stood before a mirror, much as she had that day in the medical facility so long ago. Gray streaked her chestnut hair now, and fine lines crinkled at the corners of her eyes when she smiled. But those eyes still shone with the same wonder and joy she'd felt when she first saw her true self reflected back at her. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Happy birthday, my love," he murmured, kissing her cheek. Allison leaned back against him, drinking in the moment. She thought of David, of the long, difficult road that had led her here. There was no regret, no longing for what might have been. This was who she was always meant to be. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, catching her reflective mood. Allison smiled, meeting his gaze in the mirror. "I'm thinking about how incredibly lucky I am. To have this life, this love, this chance to be truly, completely myself." Ethan tightened his embrace. "We're the lucky ones, having you in our lives." As the sounds of their children's laughter drifted up from downstairs, Allison felt a profound sense of contentment wash over her. She had rewritten her story, defied biology and societal expectations to become her authentic self. And in doing so, she had found a happiness beyond anything she could have imagined. Allison turned in Ethan's arms, kissing him softly. "Come on," she said, taking his hand. "Let's go celebrate with our family." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.